The day I became worth something, I was standing in the kitchen making toast. That's the part no one believes when I tell it. They expect a boardroom, a moment of triumph in front of people who wronged me, some kind of reckoning bathed in golden light. But it's just me, 6 in the morning, in the kitchen of the Hale estate, making toast because I can't sleep, and I haven't been able to sleep for 11 days. The bread is slightly burnt. I'm watching the smoke curl up toward the ceiling fan, and my phone buzzes on the counter. I almost don't look at it. The notification reads, Hale Industries Board Resolution, unanimous, effective immediately. Acting CEO, Marcus Hale. I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone face down on the counter and eat my toast. It tastes like nothing, like cardboard, like 11 days of silence swallowed whole. Here is what you need to understand before anything else. I didn't come from money. I came from a file. A folder in a family lawyer's office with a child's name on it, and the Hale family needed an heir that Owen, their biological son, their golden son, their real son, refused to become. So they found me, educated me, dressed me, and when I was old enough, they arranged 5 engagements to 5 families whose alliances the Hales needed, and they told me to be charming and grateful and to remember my place. I was 23 then. I remember the first dinner, all 5 women, their families, Vivian Hale at the head of the table, in a cream blazer that probably cost more than my entire childhood. She introduced me the way you'd introduce a piece of furniture. This is Marcus. He's been with us 4 years now. He's quite capable. Quite capable. I watched Sophia Laurent look me over the way she'd look at a coat she'd decided not to buy. I watched Celeste Moreau lean over to whisper something to her mother. I watched Adriana Voss study me the way a lawyer studies a contract she expects to find problems in. Natasha Reeves was on her phone, and Elise Fontaine, quiet, sitting slightly apart from the others, a small book folded shut in her lap. She looked at me, not at my suit, not at my posture. She looked at my face, the way people almost never do, and her expression was something I couldn't name. Not pity, not interest, something quieter than both. I looked away first. That was 4 years ago. And for 4 years, I have been the fiancé that all 5 of them found ways to make clear they did not want. And for 4 years, I have been patient. I have been strategic. I have been, in Vivian's words, quite capable. Now it is 6 in the morning, my toast is burnt, and I am the CEO of everything she built. I finish the last bite, I rinse my plate, I go upstairs and get dressed. The first person to find out, besides me, is Daniel. I call him at 7. He picks up on the second ring, which means he was already awake, which means he already saw the announcement, which means he is choosing to let me speak first. This is why Daniel is my only real friend. He understands timing. Say something, I tell him. I'm trying to figure out, he says slowly, if you're happy. I think about that. Outside my window, the estate grounds are gray and still. A gardener is moving somewhere near the hedge line, small and unhurried. I don't know yet, I say honestly. Marcus, his voice drops. They gave it to you because Owen imploded. You know that, right? This wasn't a gift. This was a rescue operation. I know, and Vivian will adapt, I say. She always does. There's a long pause on his end. I can hear him breathing. Daniel does this when he's deciding how honest to be. What about the 5 of them? He asks. I don't answer right away. I look at the window. The gardener has disappeared into the hedges. They'll find out by noon, I say. And we'll see who they actually are. He makes a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. Something that sits between concern and dark amusement, which is basically Daniel's entire emotional register when it comes to my life. You've been waiting for this, he says. It's not a question. I've been patient, I correct. There's a difference. Is there? I pick up my jacket from the chair. It's the plain one, not the good one. Not the one Vivian bought for formal appearances. The one I chose. Tell me the difference tonight, he says. Over dinner. Somewhere that isn't that house. Tonight I might be busy. Marcus, I'll text you. I hang up. I stand in the quiet of my room for one more moment, just one, and I think about patience. I think about 4 years of dinners where I sat at the edge of conversations I wasn't included in. 4 years of being assessed and found lacking by people who never once asked what I thought about anything. 4 years of Vivian's careful, clinical kindness that was really just management in a nicer coat. And now the board has spoken. Unanimously. Which means even the members Vivian thought she had locked down voted with the resolution. I put on the plain jacket. I walk downstairs. I make myself another piece of toast. This one I don't burn. The news reaches the fiancés in a very specific order, and I know this because I watch it happen. Sophia is first. She has a financial alert set on Hale Industries. I always suspected she was monitoring the stock more than she monitored me, and she appears in the east sitting room at 8:47 a.m., phone in hand, posture very slightly altered from her usual perfect stillness. Not a lot, just enough that I notice. She looks at me across the room and says nothing. I say nothing back. She leaves. Adriana finds out through a colleague at her firm. She walks into the library at 10:15, where I'm going through the first round of board correspondence. And she stands in the doorway for a moment. She doesn't say congratulations or ask questions. She says, the Voss family will need to see updated disclosures within 30 days. Then she nods once and walks away. I respect that more than I expected to. Natasha finds out from social media, specifically from the comments on her own post, a morning selfie she'd scheduled without knowing the news would break. By the time I walk past her suite, I can hear her voice through the door, calling someone high-pitched and fast. I don't stop walking. Celeste doesn't come out of her room until noon. When she does, her eyes are slightly red, though I can't tell if that's emotion or the usual late-night and wine situation. She finds me in the garden. She stands 3 feet away. The wind is moving through the hedges, and it smells like rain coming. Is it real? She asks. Yes. Owen just gave it to you? Owen made choices that made the board uncomfortable, I say. I had nothing to do with it. She looks at me the way you look at someone when you're trying to find the lie and can't locate it. Her jaw tightens slightly. Vivienne must be furious, she says. I haven't spoken to Vivienne yet today. A pause. The wind moves again. Celeste wraps her arms around herself. Not because she's cold, I think, but because she needs something to hold on to. I was unkind to you, she says suddenly. Her voice is different, smaller. I look at her. I wait. Last month. At the Laurent dinner, I said. She stops. You heard me. I heard you. I confirm. I'd been standing outside the dining room. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was simply present, and she had not checked whether the door was open. She'd called me decorative. She'd said it to Sophia with a laugh, and Sophia had added something I didn't catch but understood from the sound of it. Celeste looks at the hedges now. I'm sorry, she says quietly. I watch her face for a moment. I believe she means it. I also know she means it right now, today in this particular morning, and I'm not sure what she would mean tomorrow. Thank you, I say, and I turn and walk back toward the house. I don't know what I feel. That's the honest answer. Something complicated is happening in my chest, and I am not ready to examine it yet. Elise finds me last, and finds me differently. It's evening. I've spent the afternoon on calls, legal, financial, operational. The Hale Industries position is not a small thing. It is an empire wearing the skin of a family business, and the board gave it to me because the alternative was watching it fracture, and somewhere in the last 4 years, I had apparently demonstrated enough quiet competence to be the safe choice. I'm sitting on the rooftop terrace. I have a glass of water. The city beyond the estate walls is just beginning to light up, that specific blue hour when everything looks like a photograph of itself. Elise comes up the stairs carefully, like she's not certain she should. She's carrying 2 cups of tea, one for her, one, I realize, for me, and she sets mine on the table beside me without asking if I want it. She sits down. Not close, not far, we're quiet for a while. The city hums. You don't have to say anything, I tell her. I know, she says. I wasn't going to congratulate you. I look at her. No? It seemed like the wrong word. She wraps both hands around her cup. Congratulations is for things you worked for. This feels more like, she pauses, thinking, like something that was owed, finally paid. I'm quiet. I don't mean that to sound. I mean it honestly, she says. I know. I say, the tea is still hot. I pick it up. Something about the small weight of it, the warmth of it, is steadying in a way I didn't expect. Can I ask you something? She says. Yes. Did you know? When Vivienne arranged all of this, the five of us, did you know this was where it was going? I think about that honestly. I knew I needed to survive the arrangement, I say. I didn't know what surviving would look like. Elise nods slowly. She's looking at the city now, the lights coming on one by one in the distance. She has a small notebook in her lap. She always seems to have a small notebook, and her fingers rest on its cover without opening it. I think I was unfair to you, she says, in smaller ways than the others, but still. I wait. I kept my distance, she says. I told myself it was because the arrangement was unjust for all of us. But I think I was also afraid. Of what? She considers this for a long time. Of actually looking, she says finally. The city lights keep coming on. I drink my tea. I don't know what to do with what she just said, so I don't do anything with it yet. I just let it sit there in the blue evening air, between us, real and unfinished. Vivienne calls me to her study the next morning. I've been expecting this. She sits behind her desk with the posture of someone who has rehearsed their composure, and she gestures to the chair across from her, and I sit in it. I've sat in this chair dozens of times. It's always felt like a summoning. Congratulations, she says. Her voice is smooth, controlled. Thank you, Vivienne. The board acted quickly. A pause. More quickly than I expected. I think they'd been ready for a while, I say. Her eyes move to me. There's something careful happening behind them. Vivienne is not a stupid woman. She is, in fact, one of the sharpest people I've ever met. And right now, she is recalculating. You'll have questions about the engagements, she says. The arrangements are contractual. I'm aware. The families will want reassurance that the Vivienne. I say it gently. Not hard. She stops. I'm not dissolving anything today. I'm not making announcements. I'm going to run the company, and I'm going to take my time with everything else. She looks at me for a long moment. You've grown up, she says, and it is the most human thing she has ever said to me. I don't let myself feel it. I can't afford to yet. I had good teachers, I say. It's a neutral thing. It costs me nothing. She seems to understand that it's not warmth, it's acknowledgement, and something in her posture settles slightly. Owen, she begins, is not my concern right now, I say. I'll call him this week. Let him know I have no interest in humiliating him. He may not believe that. He doesn't have to believe it yet, I say. He just needs to know I said it. I stand up. I button my jacket. I look at her once more, this woman who found me in a lawyer's file and made me into something she could use, who also educated me and housed me and, in her particular way, prepared me more than she intended to. Thank you for breakfast, I say. She hadn't offered me breakfast, but there's coffee on the side table, and she poured a cup for me without commenting on it. I take the cup with me as I leave. Sophia finds me in my office on a Wednesday. She doesn't knock. She walks in, closes the door behind her, and sets a file on my desk. Inside is a design proposal, the Laurent family's new collection launch, the one her father has been trying to get Hale Industries to co-sponsor for 8 months. Every time he asked, Owen said he'd look at it. Owen never looked at it. I'm not here because of the engagement, she says, sitting across from me before I've invited her to. I'm here because this is a genuine business opportunity. I open the file. I read the first page. You prepared this? I ask. My father's team prepared it. I revised it. I look at the proposal. It's good. Actually good. Not the vanity project Owen dismissed it as, but a well-structured brand partnership with measurable returns. I should have brought this to you 6 months ago, Sophia says. Your father brought it to Owen. I should have gone around my father, she says flatly. I knew Owen wasn't going to do anything with it. She stops, crosses her legs, looks at the window briefly. I didn't take you seriously. She says it the way she does everything, precisely, without softening it. I actually appreciate that more than an apology wrapped in excuses. I'll review the full proposal this week, I say. Send me your direct contact for the project lead. She nods. She stands. She looks at me for a moment. You're not what I thought, she says. You didn't think much, I say. It comes out dry. Not cruel, she almost smiles. Not quite. No, she says, I didn't. After she leaves, I sit with the proposal in front of me, and I think about what it costs people to say the true thing when the true thing makes them look small. Sophia just paid that cost without flinching. I note it. The public moment happens at the Hale Industries quarterly gala. These events are unavoidable. The company runs them to maintain relationships with every family in its orbit, which means all 5 fiancé families will be present, which means the evening will be watched and analyzed and reported on in exactly the way all wealthy family events are watched and analyzed and reported on. Daniel insists on coming. You need a human being in that room, he says. One person who doesn't want anything from you. He's not wrong. I arrive in the plain suit again. Not the one Vivienne had tailored for Owen's cast-offs. Mine. The room notices me differently now. I can feel it. A kind of new friction. The way attention rearranges itself around a person once the story about them changes. People I've met at a dozen of these events find reasons to introduce themselves properly for the first time. Men who used to look past me now hold eye contact. I hold it back, but I don't perform warmth I don't have. It's Natasha who creates the moment. She arrives with her phone already out. She's been filming content for her channel since before the car door opened, and by the time she reaches the main hall, she's already live. I see it from across the room. The slight tilt of her wrist that means the phone is on, the way she moves through the space, with half her attention somewhere else. She says something to her camera about the new CEO of Hale Industries and the arrangement everyone's been talking about, and she says it with the bright, performative energy she uses for everything. But then she says, smiling wide, I mean, nobody expected this. Trust me, we all thought Marcus was just, and she stops. Because I'm standing 5 feet away, and I'm looking directly at the camera, and then I look at her. The room has gone very slightly quiet in that radius. Not silent, just attentive. Natasha lowers her phone. Her face changes. Underneath the performance, and this is the first time I've seen it, she looks genuinely ashamed, not of being caught, of the sentence she almost finished. I was going to say something unkind, she says, very quietly. Not for the camera. I know, I say. I do that, she says. I do that, and I don't always think about. She presses her lips together. I'm sorry, Marcus. The thing about Natasha is that the performance is so constant that when it drops, even for 30 seconds, the person underneath is startlingly real. There is someone in there who is frightened and young and very tired of being watched. I see it plainly. Put the phone away for the evening, I say. Just for tonight. She looks at me. Why? Because you seem exhausted. She stares at me like that's the strangest thing anyone has ever said to her. Then she puts the phone in her bag, and she goes and stands by the window alone for a while. And when Daniel drifts over to talk to her, I see her shoulders come down an inch. Daniel catches my eye across the room and gives me a look that says, we're going to discuss your bizarre ability to accidentally help people. I turn back to the room. I smile at someone's father. I drink my water. I get through the evening. Owen calls me on a Thursday night. I'm in my apartment. I moved out of the estate 3 weeks after the announcement, quietly, without ceremony. I have a small place. It has a window that faces the park and a kitchen I actually cook in. And for the first time in 40 years, I sleep through the night. The call comes at 11 p.m. I almost don't answer, but I said I would call him, and he got there first, and I owe him at least the conversation. Marcus, he says. Owen. A long silence. He's been drinking, not heavily, but enough that his cadence is slightly loose. You won, he says. So I want to say it before someone else makes me say it formally. You won. I didn't compete with you, I say. Don't do that. His voice tightens. Don't be gracious. It makes it worse. I think about that. Okay, I say. I know what I did, he says. I'm not calling to make excuses. I wait. I was terrible to you, he says, specifically, for years. And it wasn't only because of the company. It was because you were better at being in this family than I was. And I hated you for that. It's the most honest thing Owen has ever said to me. I stand in my kitchen in the dark, and I hold the phone, and I let the honesty of it land. You were their son, I say. I was their project. Projects get finished, he says quietly. He stops. Sons just keep failing. I sit down. Outside, the park is very still. I don't want what you have, he says. The company, I never wanted to run it. I only wanted them to want me to want it. Does that make sense? Yes, I say. It makes complete sense. Another silence. Don't let her manage you the way she managed me, he says. Vivienne, she loves you in her way. But her way is, I know, I say. Yeah, he says. I figured you did. We hang up and I sit in my dark kitchen for a long time. The city hums outside. A cat passes below the window. I think about Owen Hale, golden, wasted, circling a life he never wanted, and I feel something I didn't expect to feel. Grief, small and clean, for what we could have been if the arrangement of us had been different. Adriana is the one who says what no one else has said. We're in a meeting, a genuine one, her firm reviewing the updated shareholder agreement. She's precise and focused, and across the table from me, she is entirely professional. After the meeting, as her associate packs up, she lingers. You know what strikes me, she says, not looking up from her notebook. Tell me. None of them chose you, she says, and none of them could actually see you until they needed to, including me. She closes her notebook. That's not a compliment, Marcus. That's an observation, I know. The question I'd ask myself, she says, and then stops. Go ahead. The question is whether you want any of them now, because you actually want them, or because being wanted by people who once didn't want you is satisfying. She says the last word carefully. Those are different things. I look at her for a moment. You're very direct for someone who spent 2 years barely acknowledging my presence. I know, she says. I'm trying to be direct now because I wasn't then. A pause. And because I think you deserve to hear someone say the honest version. What's the honest version? She looks at me. You're a good man who was treated as a means to an end by everyone in his life, including, to some degree, me. And you handled it with more grace than anyone had a right to expect. And now everyone wants a piece of what you've become. She picks up her bag. Just make sure what you choose next is actually yours. She leaves. I sit in the empty conference room. The late afternoon light comes through the blinds in long, flat lines. Adriana Voss just became someone I respect entirely. There's a night I don't talk about with anyone. About 6 weeks after the announcement. Daniel is traveling. The estate is quiet. I'm in the old house, not my apartment. Because Vivienne asked me to review some documents, and I stayed too late, and the car service has a 2-hour wait. I end up in the library. Old habit. I used to come here when the house felt unbearable, surrounded by books. No one expected you to perform anything. I sit in the chair in the corner, the one with the bad leg that no one ever fixed, and I put my head back, and I just stop. I let everything stop. The company, the 5 names on a contract, the board calls, Vivienne's careful calculations, Owen's grief, Sophia's partial acknowledgement, Natasha's apology, Adriana's honesty. All of it just settles. And I realize I'm tired. Not professionally. Not strategically. Tired in a way that goes down further than that, to the place that the 4-year-old in the lawyer's office file started being tired when nobody came. I stay in that chair for a long time. I don't cry. I'm not that kind of tired. I'm the kind of tired that just needs a witness. And there's no one to witness it tonight. So I witness it myself. I think about what I actually want. Not what I've earned. Not what I've outmaneuvered. Not what I deserve. What I want. And the only thing I come up with, honest, quiet, real, is this. Someone who looked at me before I became useful. I think about Elise on the rooftop with 2 cups of tea. I think I was afraid of actually looking. I get up. I straighten the chair. I go find a couch and I sleep. And in the morning I make coffee in the kitchen I grew up in, and it tastes, finally, like something real. I call Elise the next morning. She picks up on the fourth ring, a little breathless, like she ran for the phone. I picture her in whatever her morning looks like. The small flat near the university, where she teaches one seminar a week, surrounded by books she actually reads. Marcus, good morning, I say. Are you busy? I was just making tea, she says. Badly. I always make it badly. I was thinking, I say, about what you said on the rooftop, about being afraid of looking. A silence. Not uncomfortable. She's listening. I've been thinking about what I want, I say, for the first time actually, and I wanted to ask you something. Okay, she says, carefully. Would you have dinner with me, I say, not because of the arrangement, not because of the families, not because of the contract, just because I'd like to have dinner with you? A longer pause. That's very different from how these things usually go. She says, yes, I say. That's the point. I hear her smile, not see it, but hear it in the quality of the breath on her end of the line. Yes, she says. I would like that. Saturday. Saturday, she agrees. I hang up and I am standing in the kitchen of my apartment in the morning light, and something in me that has been held carefully, strategically, at a distance for 4 years takes one step forward. The dinner is nothing like a date from an arrangement. We go to a small place she knows, not a Hale Industries client, not a venue anyone would photograph. And we sit across from each other and order things off a handwritten menu. And she tells me about her research, which is about collective memory and how communities decide what to forget. And it is the most interesting conversation I have had in years. She listens the way she looks, completely, without preparing her next sentence while I'm still talking. I tell her about Daniel, about the phone call with Owen. I don't tell her everything, not yet, but I tell her enough that she sees the shape of it. You've been carrying this very alone, she says. I had Daniel. Daniel loves you, but he also needs to believe you're okay, she says. That's a different kind of company. I look at her. I read people, she says, slightly apologetic. It's the worst thing about me. It might be the best thing about you, I say. She looks down at her cup for a moment, a small warm color in her face. Can I tell you something honest? She says. Please. When the arrangement was first made, I was furious, she says. Not at you. At the whole thing. 5 women, 1 man, as if we were portfolio items. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. A pause, but then I met you, and you were. She searches. You were the only person in that room who also looked furious, but quietly. The way you look furious when you've decided that the fury isn't going to help. I'm quiet. I recognize that, she says. She shakes her head. I was a coward. I should have just talked to you. We're talking now, I say. She smiles. It's not a polished smile. It's the kind that surprises the person wearing it. We are, she says. Outside, the city goes on. Inside, the food arrives, and we stay at the table for 3 hours, and neither of us looks at our phones once. There is a moment, about a week after that dinner, that I don't see coming. Sophia asks to meet for coffee, not a business meeting, she's clear about that, just coffee. I say yes. She arrives exactly on time. She sits down. She orders an espresso, and she doesn't reach for her phone. I've been thinking about something Adriana said. She starts. At the gala? She pulled me aside after you and I spoke, when I brought you the proposal. Sophia wraps her hands around her cup, she said. A pause. She said I should ask myself if I was suddenly interested in who you actually are, or only in who you'd become. I say nothing, and I've been honest with myself, Sophia says, which is not something I do often, so I want credit for it. I almost smile. Noted. It's both, she says, and I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's true. I am interested in who you are. You're the most self-possessed person I've ever been in a room with, and I've wasted 4 years pretending not to notice. And yes, the company matters. My family needs that partnership. I'm not going to lie to you and say it doesn't. I look at her. I'm not asking you to choose me, she says. I'm asking you to know that I see you now, actually see you. She picks up her espresso, even if it's too late. I think about Adriana's question, about what I actually want versus what would be satisfying. I appreciate your honesty, Sophia, I say. I genuinely do. But I'm not available to be chosen right now, I say. I'm choosing. She looks at me. Something crosses her face. Not disappointment exactly, but a kind of reckoning. The recognition that she had something and she spent it on contempt, and now she's living in the after. She's a good person, Sophia says quietly. Elise, I've always known that. She is, I say. Sophia finishes her espresso. She stands up. She smooths her jacket. Approve the partnership proposal, she says. It's a good deal for both sides. And then, more quietly, I hope you're happy, Marcus. You've earned the right. She walks out, and I sit alone with my coffee, and I think about how much it must have cost her to say all of that. Sophia Laurent does not often pay that cost. She paid it today. 3 months later, I am in my apartment on a Sunday morning. Elise is at the counter making tea. Still badly, she insists, though she's gotten better, and I'm sitting at the table reading something I should be reading for Monday. But I'm not really reading. I'm watching her. She's wearing one of my sweaters, oversized, and she has her notebook open on the counter beside the kettle, and she's jotting something down while the tea steeps. She does this. Captures thoughts the instant they surface, like she doesn't trust them to stay. The morning light is coming in sideways. It catches the side of her face. I think about a dinner in a house I don't live in anymore, with a woman who didn't look at me and 5 who didn't either. I think about burnt toast and a phone notification and a decision I made quietly, on my own, in a kitchen at 6 in the morning. I think about what it is to be patient. Not strategic patience, not survival patience. The kind that comes from the belief, small and stubborn as a seed, that something real is on its way. Elise brings the tea to the table. She sets mine down. She always makes mine first, and she sits across from me and looks at what I'm supposed to be reading. You're not actually reading that, she says. No, I admit. What are you doing? I look at her. The morning light, the oversized sweater, the notebook ink slightly smudged on her left hand because she always forgets she's left-handed when she moves too fast. I'm just here, I say. She tilts her head. She looks at me the way she looked at me at that very first dinner. Not at my suit, not at my position, not at what I represented, at my face, at me. Good, she says, and she picks up her tea, and I look at the window, and the park beyond it, and the ordinary Sunday morning light falling on everything it reaches, and I think, yes, this is what I was waiting for. Not the company, not the reckoning, not the 5 names finally saying my name like it meant something. This, 2 cups of tea on a Sunday, someone who looked first. Outside, the city goes on doing what cities do. Moving, breathing, not caring about any of the specific small lives happening inside it. And inside, in this kitchen, in this light, something that started in a lawyer's folder 20-some years ago arrives, quietly, at the only destination that ever really mattered. I reach across the table. She is already reaching back.